Twitter, someone asked the same question. Is VR dying? And honestly, I don't think that's the right question anymore. VR doesn't need a miracle to survive 2026. It needs to fix a few very specific, very solvable problems. And most of them aren't about graphics, specs, or new headsets. They're about people and how they find VR, how they use it, and why they stop. So here are the 5 things VR needs to get right if it actually wants to thrive in 2026. One of the most common things I hear is, there's nothing to play in VR. But when you actually dig into the stores, that just isn't true. The problem isn't a lack of games, it's visibility. Most VR stores heavily prioritize top-selling titles, free-to-play experiences, games that are already successful, or their own platforms like Horizon Worlds. Which means if a new premium game launches and doesn't immediately pop off, it can disappear into the abyss. There's very little editorial curation and very little start here guidance. And almost no help for users who just want to know what's worth their time. So people open the store, scroll for a bit, see the same familiar titles, and leave. Thinking nothing has changed, the perception alone is incredibly damaging. Because if users think VR is stagnant, they stop checking. I personally struggle to find new games on platforms like Steam VR because it's like a tiny little section within the whole Steam ecosystem, and then it only shows you popular games anyway. And on the PlayStation Store, I just wanted to download Hitman VR, and it took me so long to work out how to do it. And they don't even have a dedicated PlayStation VR section. I don't get it. I usually go to Twitter to find decent games rather than the actual store. But I'm not one to complain without a solution. And I really think the answer is better store curation. I think the Apple App Store does a great job of managing their store. Or especially on the MetaQuest store, a clearly defined top free and then top paid game sections could be really useful. Or even a way just to not show any free games. And I'd love to see all the Horizon World stuff just completely disappear, but to be honest, that's probably wishful thinking. I really think we need to see more store algorithms. Like if someone has never played Horizon Worlds, maybe stop showing them Horizon Worlds, and if they do like Horizon Worlds, then show them more of that stuff. But I just feel like we're constantly getting Horizon Worlds crammed down our throat at the expense of discovery of on the Quest store. But I'd really love to see some better editorial curation in the store, and I really think all the store platforms need to get some inspiration from Apple, because if Apple does anything well, it's definitely UI and user experience. I think all the VR stores have a long way to go in terms of curation and discoverability on their stores. Comfort is still a big problem when it comes to VR. The headsets are heavy, they're hot and sweaty, and can cause a lot of pressure on your face. And battery life can be a real pain. There's also setup friction, updates, guardians, Wi-Fi issues. All of these quietly chip away at motivation to play. None of these things are deal breakers on their own, but together they break habits. And what makes it worse is that many users, including myself, feel like accessories are no longer optional. They're required just to make the VR headsets bearable. There's a whole world of comfort mods for VR, including better head straps, extra batteries, facial covers. So when using VR feels like a chore instead of something you casually jump into, people naturally choose easier alternatives. And I really feel for the people out there who are still using the default head straps. So I'd really love comfort to be a top consideration for any new VR headsets coming out this year. And I may be alone in this, but I'd really love to see external batteries. Similar to the Apple Vision Pro, they had a wired puck. I honestly think I would prefer that because a lot of the weight problems on the headsets is because of the inbuilt battery. I'd love for that weight to be removed somehow, and maybe an external battery is the way to do it. The real danger for VR isn't bad first impressions, it's the quiet drop off after the honeymoon phase. Retention is still a real issue when it comes to VR. I have so many people tell me their headsets are collecting dust, which is so tragic. They've tried the cool stuff, they've shown their friends, and now they're asking, what's next? For a lot of people, the answer is not much. Unless you find a social game or long-term game you can really click with, the novelty can wear off. There are very few VR apps that create routine, and very few that feel like a weekly habit. And when there's no habit, the headset slowly becomes furniture. And that's not because VR is bad, but because it never became essential. Retention is the foundation everything else sits on. If people don't come back, they're going to assume that's what VR always has to offer. And I guess the struggle is that this is a game problem, not necessarily a hardware problem. We need more games that rely on skill building or progression. Like when I think back of my old gaming days, usually it was shooters that sucked me in and got addicted, or survival games like Ark, or your farming sims like Stardew Valley. They're probably the games I've been most addicted to in my life. Apart from Beat Saber. And I know those games exist in VR, but maybe they're just not there yet. And yes, before anyone comments, I'm yet to check out Forefront. It's on my list. But I think those addictive retention type games will happen in time, and hopefully we'll start to see more in 2026. But let me know what VR games you've been really addicted to and have kept you coming back again and again. I think VR is in a bit of an identity crisis. Like VR is currently trying to be gaming, fitness, productivity, lifestyle, social, mixed reality, all at the same time. And the result is confusing messaging, especially for new users. Marketing often focuses on first-time wow moments, spectacle games, or novelty mixed reality experiences. But long-term users care about something else entirely: depth. I feel like a lot of Meta's marketing is really targeting non-gamers, which can be a hard sell and confusing, and kind of neglecting their prominent demographic. Like, I've had so many gaming friends reach out to me who have never touched VR headsets before, who are suddenly interested in the Steam frame. I'm like, you can just play Steam VR games right now on a $300 Quest headset, you know? But it was the Steam VR that suddenly piqued their interest in VR. And I think that's because Valve really knows their audience and knows that their audience is gamers and knows how to market to them. Or it feels like Meta never wanted to just be a gaming headset. They wanted to be a lifestyle and productivity device. And I think that messaging gets confusing, but maybe Meta does need two different headsets. One gaming focused headset like the Quest, and then maybe one ultra lightweight mixed reality headset like the rumored codename Puffin. But if VR doesn't clearly communicate what it's best at and who's it for, people don't know how to fit in their lives. Clear identity builds trust, and trust builds retention. Behind every good VR experience is a studio taking a real risk. Making games results in long development cycles, especially the high quality games, and sadly, because VR is niche, there are smaller audiences to sell to, which means limited visibility. And when good games fail, it's not necessarily because of the quality, but because no one saw them. And that's a big risk that becomes hard to justify for game studios. This loops back to everything else. Discovery affects sales, sales affects sustainability, and sustainability affects what kind of games get made, aka probably why we're seeing a lot of free-to-play games. VR survives when making good games is sustainable. It needs an ecosystem where solid, well-made games can actually survive. Again, this comes down to discoverability, but also funding. So many games wouldn't get made without funding. I think we still need to see more of this, maybe from more external sources, but I think another way developers can find sustainability, which may be controversial, is multi-platform development. Like releasing games on flat screens and VR. We've seen many games be successful doing this, and I don't think it results in an inferior VR game if it's done well. But I think this is a bigger problem that affects the whole industry and not something that's easy to solve, except as consumers, making sure we're putting our money behind good games, and as a content creator, doing what I can to showcase them. The important thing here is none of these problems are unsolvable. They just require focus. If VR fixes discovery, reduces friction, builds habit, clarifies its identity, and supports developers, it doesn't just survive 2026, it thrives. Let me know what you think VR needs to thrive in 2026, and I'll see you next time.